Hey, what's going on, guys? OJ back here with another video, and today we're going to be talking about more about the UFC Apex. Now, you guys might be asking, didn't I make a video exactly like this yesterday? No, because yesterday I titled it UFC Fighters That Need to Be Freed from the Apex. Now, this video is mainly going to focus on UFC fighters we need to send to the Apex, right? I described the UFC Apex as basically, purgatory, jail, if you will, for these fighters. And it's not necessarily they committed any crimes. It's more the fact that their fights are simply an abomination to watch at like 2 in the morning, and I don't really care to watch them. So put them in the apex. So with that being said, I'm gonna have a set of tiers for you guys, just ranking a bunch of fighters that are either frequently featured on the apex, some guys we need to send over to the apex for a while, or like some guys we need to get out of the apex. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. All right, first on our list, we got Asul Mabayev. Send him over to the Apex for 2 to 3 years and forget him. All right, this bum is practically the inspiration to our list because this guy committed an egregious war crime, pointing down to the canvas and immediately shooting for a double leg. Now, I hate the whole Max Holloway trend where he just points down to the canvas, because outside of him, everyone who does it proceeds to either run away from an exchange or just get beat up. That's why I really don't like it when other fighters try to copy him. But especially Asul Mabayev, because this guy made me hate the Max Holloway trend even more. Asul Mabayev, simply put, he's not entertaining to watch unless he's getting absolutely beat up by Manel Cap, right? I've never really watched an Asul Mabayev fight and went, wow, this guy can be a potential top five contender or like a future champion. Like I genuinely don't understand how he was able to get this far into the rankings, but he's top seven right now. So I don't know. We'll keep him in the apex for 2 or 3 more years. Never put this guy back in like a UFC fight in our card in front of a crowd because he's going to put the crowd asleep 100%. All right, now up next we got Roman Dolidze. Classic Apex mainstay. Uh, I know Roman Dolidze's on a 3 fight win streak right now. I think that's disgraceful that Roman Dolidze's on a 3 fight win streak. The fact that Roman Dolidze's on a win streak in 2025 is simply unacceptable because this guy is the definition of mid outside of grappling, right? And when he does use his grappling, which is like once in a blue moon, he actually looks pretty good. He almost got Jack Hermanson a calf slicer and then proceeded to do absolutely nothing over the next 3 years. So Roman Dolidze, unless he actually starts to use his jujitsu more often, I'd say he's an Apex mainstay. And even he can win like 5 fights in a row, and he could be demanding for a title shot for all I care. He's still going to be fighting in the Apex because Roman Dolidze, he's just incredibly mid. All right, now up next we got Martin Boudet. Now this entire tier here, all right. Oh, I spelled frozen wrong. Let me just fix that for us real quick. All right, this entire tier over here is dedicated to the NPC heavyweights, and Martin Boudet embodies the definition of an NPC heavyweight. Now, Martin Boudet, I believe, has won 2 or 3 fights in a row, right? He beat uh the one FC bomb. He beat the light heavyweight Kyrgyzstani guy. I keep forgetting all these names, but either way, Martin Boudet is somehow on a win streak in 2025. All right, do not let this man near anywhere the top 10. Like this man is he's just a fat blob. All right, the fact that he's ranked even is a disgrace to the UFC heavyweight division. Quite frankly, like you tell your casual fans like what a UFC heavyweight looks like. Martin Boudet is like the typical UFC heavyweight fighter, and that's just unfortunate because I can't tell Martin Boudet apart from like the local 500-pound McDonald's guy in America. So Martin Boudet, he should be cryogenically frozen in the Apex, right? He's gonna be like occasionally on like the feature fight of an Apex card because the Apex is incredibly terrible. And Outside of that, do not let this man anywhere near like the pay-per-views. All right, do not let this man anywhere like in front of a crowd. Like unless it's on the early prelims. If it's on the early prelims, I'll accept it because we need like one or two bad fights or filler fights to be exact. But yeah, do not put this guy anywhere near a main card of a fight night or like a pay-per-view especially. All right, now up next we got Christian Rodriguez. Now, Christian Rodriguez, when he's not fighting an undefeated prospect, he is incredibly mid. All right, he just looks incredibly mid. He doesn't do anything special. His whole specialty is defense, grappling defense specifically. So, C-Rod over here, like, he's not exactly the most fun fighter to watch, but when he's fighting an undefeated prospect, for some reason, this guy will turn it up like never before. Like, he will put on like a generational performance against any undefeated prospect. All right. So, Christian Rodriguez, if he's fighting an undefeated prospect, put it on the main card of a fight night. Like, I'm pretty sure C-Rod will like actually show up and try to like fraud check the prospect. But when he's fighting like anybody else, then yeah, don't let him out the apex because 9 out of 10 times he'll probably stink it up. All right, now up next we got Charles Johnson. Yeah, get him out the apex UFC. Like Charles Johnson literally chinned Joshua Van, who's like the number one contender right now, like last year. And the UFC repaid this man by simply just locking him up in the apex. I don't know why the UFC hates Charles Johnson. Like I think Charles Johnson is pretty cool. Like I understand that like he does lose fights at times. Like I know he lost to Ramazan Temirov recently, but I think Ramazan Temirov's just a bad stylistic matchup. And I understand that Charles Johnson has lost a few fights in the UFC, but let's face it, like some of the fights were robberies, you can argue. Like especially the Ode Osborne fight. I thought that Charles Johnson clearly won that fight. And he has been like stellar against any prospect in the flyweight division. So I'd say Charles Johnson, uh, he's a fun fighter to watch. I know he's like fighting a Loner Kavanaugh in Shanghai, so I think that's pretty good. But yeah, just don't lock him up in the apex even if he loses, because even if he loses against Loner Kavanaugh, I still think of Charles Johnson as a fun fighter and a serious contender in the flyweight division. All right, now up next we got Ebo Aslan, who also fought recently on the UFC Abu Dhabi Fight Night card. Yeah, do not let him out of the Apex. Send him 2, 3 years to the UFC Apex and forget. The only reason Ebo Aslan is in the UFC in the first place is because he's Turkish and the UFC wants Turkish prospects. Like there is no redeeming quality from Ebo Aslan. Like he KO'd Rafael Sequeira. Rafael Sequeira shouldn't belong in the UFC. And outside of that, he lost to Ion Kutalaba. He lost to Anton Shirkalj by like a submission. I know that was in the regional scene, and he did beat Anton Shirkalj in the rematch. But if you're losing to Anton Shirkalj at any point in your career, then I don't think you're that good. But the UFC kept pushing him, and eventually they matched him up with Billy Alakana this past weekend. And this guy proceeded to have a sparring match with Billy Alakana, and then pretended to get angry because his name wasn't raised. Like, bro, you did not do anything to deserve a win in that fight, right? Billy Elikana, like, actually landed strikes. What the hell were you doing, Ebo Aslan? You just kind of emoted at him and then got mad that your name wasn't called. So, Ebo Aslan, simply put, only reason he's here is because he's Turkish and he is a disgrace to watch in the UFC. So, send him 2, 3 years in the Apex and then maybe he'll like get some highlight reel KOs over like absolute cans, and then maybe then we'll put him on like a fight night card. All right, now up next we got Ryan Spann. Now I understand the UFC loves Ryan Spann. I really don't understand why, but yeah, he should not be anywhere outside of the Apex. He lost to Waldo Cortez Acosta a few months ago, and I think Waldo Cortez Acosta still a bum. Like, I don't care that he technically has a win over Sergey Spivak. Waldo Cortez Acosta is not a contender. He literally went life or death with 44-year-old Andrei Arlovsky like 2 years ago. So I don't think Ryan Spann or Waldo Cortez Acosta are that good, but especially Ryan Spann because he lost to him, and he also lost to Anthony Smith, the dead corpse of Anthony Smith, twice. So Ryan Spann, I don't care that the UFC loves him. He should be an Apex mainstay. He can have all these highlight reel finishes at the Apex. He does not need to fill up a like a pay-per-view slot because simply put, Ryan Spann, I don't care. I don't care about his fights. He can get a first round arm triangle for all I care against a fat heavyweight like Ryan Spann. He just belongs in the Apex because he anytime he fights like decent level competition, he's just gonna look like a fat tard who like literally doesn't train. Like he only trains to just, look like athletic and good. He doesn't actually train to win fights. All right, now up next, we got another NPC blob in Justin Taffa. Now, Justin Taffa, like everything I said bad about Ryan Spann, just multiply that by five for Justin Taffa. Because at least Ryan Spann has wins in the UFC. Who has Justin Taffa beat within the last 3 years? All right. I know he had a few knockouts in 2022 against like random schmucks who are now like not on the UFC roster. But recently, what has he done? He lost to Tyson Teixeira in 12 seconds, and he lost to Carl Williams, who's also going to be featured on this list. He lost to who else did he lose to? I don't know. He lost to practically everybody at this point. But for some reason, the UFC keep putting him in the UFC. Quite frankly, Justin Topfa isn't UFC caliber in the first place. But if the UFC is going to keep him along, then I think it's in the UFC's best interest to cryogenically freeze him at the apex because that's the only way Justin Topfa is ever going to like generate interest in fights. Justin Taffa isn't exactly a pay-per-view draw. I know the UFC pretends that he's like a big star in the Australian MMA scene. Nobody likes him from Australia. Nobody likes him from the US. Nobody likes him from the UK. Nobody likes him from the Middle East. Like this guy doesn't have a fan base, all right? The only reason he's like featured is because he's Maori and fat. And Justin Taffa, like, he's not skilled enough to be on, like, a pay-per-view card, fight night card. Hell, he shouldn't even be in the Apex, but if we're gonna keep Justin Taffa and the Apex, just put Justin Taffa in the Apex, like, 24/7. Do not let him out of the Apex, until he gets, like, 5 wins, which I'll highly doubt because, Justin Taffa is just not that good. Alright, now up next we got William Gomez. Now, unless this is the Paris card, I don't want to see William Gomez in any fight night or pay-per-view, right? Like William Gomez, he's not bad, unlike everybody like here, or like an absolute terrorist to the sport like Astua Mabayev. But William Gomez is the definition of a kickboxing NPC. He throws like 20 strikes off the back foot. He never fights on the front foot. He'll just like leg kick at range if you give him space. He's not really knocking anybody out. He literally his only knockout is due to a groin shot, which for some reason the UFC ruled as a body kick. Outside of that, he hasn't done anything to like justify a knockout. William Gomez, he's just boring to watch. Like 15 minutes of him scurrying around the octagon like tapping the left hand or like fainting at range for like what 4 out of the 5 minutes. I don't care to see William Gomez. I understand that like the French crowd loves him, which is the only reason why I'm gonna justify him leaving the Apex once in a while. But that's specifically for the Paris cards. And if he's not fighting on the Paris cards, he should be fighting in the Apex because the Apex hosts some of the shittiest fights you'll ever see. All right, now up next we got Anthony Hernandez. Now this guy's also a prominent feature on every single UFC Apex card. Just get him out of the UFC Apex. UFC, like please. Like Anthony Hernandez is fun to watch. Like he is like Merab Devashvili, but if Merab Devashvili had like serious finishing potential. And Anthony Hernandez, like maybe he's not going to be Merab Devashvili. I do think there are styles that can beat him in the middleweight division, but I do believe that Anthony Hernandez is not only top level, he does get exciting finishes. And even when he's not getting the finishes, he's like ragdolling people, and that's incredibly fun to watch. So Anthony Hernandez, I don't see why the UFC keeps putting him in the Apex, especially against Roman Dolidze of all people, which is kind of a scary matchup. But Anthony Hernandez, like put him up against like someone like Whitaker or Adesanya. I think Anthony Hernandez can shine in those fights because he's an incredibly hyperactive grappler who will just stop at nothing to try to like either knock you out or like ground and pound TKO or just look for a submission. So Anthony Hernandez, get him out the apex because unlike most of the guys above him, he's actually pretty fun to watch. All right, now up next we got Torres Finney, absolute menace to the sport. Send Torres Finney 2 3 years into the UFC apex and forget about him. All right. Now I understand that Torres Finney recently pulled out of his fight with what was his name? Azamat Bakoev. I don't even know if he pulled out, but like either way, like that fight fell through and now they're trying to book it at a fight night, a crowded fight night. Yeah, do not do that, UFC. Horace Finney is literally gonna put every single person to sleep. This guy is physically impossible of hurting people at the UFC caliber. Like, sure, maybe he'll beat me up. All right, I'm not gonna argue that. He's like what 185 pounds, or like putting to 185 pounds. That's a lot more than what I weigh. So I'm not gonna argue the fact that Torres Finney is a big man who can probably just wrestle fuck me to death. But at the UFC level, where I'm just staying up at like 12 in the morning watching these stupid Apex cards or like a fight night card, right? Horace Finney is the last guy I want to see in a hyped up fight night card. All right, put him on the Apex. At least then I'll excuse it because Taurus Finney again physically incapable of harming a UFC fighter. Like he literally threw 4 strikes, non-damaging strikes at that against Robert Valentin. I don't know how that's even possible because Robert Valentin's not that good, and Taurus Finney literally won that fight just like holding position in a like for 15 minutes straight. Like this guy's an absolute terrorist. He should not be anywhere near like a fight night card that's in a crowded arena, let alone a pay-per-view. So yeah, Taurus Finney, send him back to the Apex for 2 to 3 more years, and then cut him from the UFC because let's face it, he's probably never gonna change his style. All right, now up next we got Chris Gutierrez. Now this guy's the definition of an Apex NPC in the lower weight classes. You know, throws like 30 leg kicks in 3 rounds. He'll like minorly out jab and outpace someone like who's not very good. And on the wrestling, he is completely incapable of defending takedowns. Maybe he'll like reverse position, but it'll take like about 2 3 minutes or nearly the entire round. And Chris Gutierrez, he's just not fun to watch. Like I understand he had that leg kick. He knocked out Frankie Edgar back in the day. Outside of that, what has he really done recently? Like he got bitched by Song Yidong. He went to a life or death decision with Quang Lee. Like, what are we doing here? And then he arguably lost to John Castaneda in his last fight. Uh, Chris Gutierrez, like, I understand he was like ranked at some point, but that's simply a disgrace. I have no idea how Chris Gutierrez won 7 fights in a row to somehow be the number 14 ranked UFC bantamweight. All right, he's not ranked caliber. Like maybe back in 2018 he was, but at this point in 2025. Chris Gutierrez is simply put a leg kicking NPC, and there's just no way he should be anywhere near a crowded fight night or like a pay per view. All right, he should be in the Apex because his style is perfect for crappy Apex cards. All right, now up next we got another NPC heavyweight, Hamdi Abdel Wahab. Absolute disgrace. Arguably lost to Jamal Pogues. Lost to Muhammad Usman in 2025. This guy's just not good. Like he'll have like 1 round of cardio and then proceed to gas out and just look like a melting ice cream on in the cage. Hamdi Abdul Wahab. Like he doesn't really defend takedowns. He'll throw some boxing combinations. They're not really damaging boxing combinations. He'll just put it out there to look like he's actually doing something and not just like flabbing his fat stomach around like a tard for like 3 rounds. So Hamdi Abdul Wahab cryogenically frozen in the apex along with the rest of the fat NPC heavyweights. Maybe he'll get knocked out. Maybe he'll like win a boring decision, but it's clear that Hamdi Abdul Wahab isn't gonna be the one to like win by knockout or by exciting finish or even by like a masterclass where he's like actually looking good on the feet. For goodness sakes, he has a BMI of 35 and somehow still got tested positive for steroids. Like unacceptable that Hamdi Abdul Wahab is still on the roster in 2025. But if we're gonna keep Hamdi Abdul Wahab on the roster in 2025, and cryogenically freeze him in the apex. All right, now up next we got Chris Curtis. Now, Chris Curtis to me, like if he fights someone who's like willing to engage with him, then he'll look pretty good. But if not, Chris Curtis is just not fun to watch. Chris Curtis is the definition of a sparring merchant. And he'll look great against someone who's like willing to engage with him in the pocket. He'll look great with someone who's like, actually trying to fight with him. If he fights someone who's like keeping range, all right, and like just tapping at him, like just making sure that like they don't get hit clean. Like Chris Curtis is simply put not good. He just doesn't do anything to adjust. He'll literally pout and talk about how someone's avoiding a fight before adjusting to a fight. And he's just not exactly an entertaining fighter in a lot of these matchups. All right, unless we get a specific matchup tailored to Chris Curtis. Do not let him out the apex because he's probably gonna put on a stinker. He'll put on a pouty face because, oh, why aren't they engaging with me in the pocket? That's the only good thing I do. It's not like I really throw kicks. Well, it's not like I really wrestle. All right. So, Chris Curtis, simply put, not good, like in most matchups. All right, unless you get him a tailored made matchup, then just keep him at the apex because he's not exactly fun to watch. All right, now up next we got Gene Matsumoto. Now most of you guys probably don't know who Gene Matsumoto is. He was like a formerly undefeated prospect in the bantamweight division. He took a fight on short notice against Rob Font, and he looked pretty good. Right now, unlike Kyler Phillips, Gene Matsumoto actually fought with heart. He actually like used the game plan effectively. He actually could strike at times. I'm very high on Gene Matsumoto. He puts on a lot of wars. It's not like he's the highest level, so I'm not expecting him to be on like a pay-per-view main card or anything like that. But he's still young. He still can improve. And I think just by like his body of work so far, where he's like, even if he's like losing, he's having fun fights. I believe that Gene Matsumoto at least deserves to not be in the Apex because the Apex is where we send prospects to kill their careers because the Apex is absolutely disgraceful. All right, now up next we got Patchy Mix. Send him 2, 3 years into the UFC Apex and forget. Patchy Mix. Now there was a time where I was really rooting for Patchy Mix, but that's not the time anymore. Patchy Mix. His fight with Mario Bautista really changed my opinion about him because I thought Patchy Mix was actually really good, but turns out Patchy Mix has been fighting nothing but schmucks, and again, someone who's like actually knowing what they're doing with their feet, you know, and who's actually a mixed martial artist. Patchy Mix is a complete bot. He literally turned into a punching bag for 3 rounds against Mario Bautista, and he refused to do anything. Like, he didn't even shoot for takedowns, which is his specialty, and tried to grapple with Mario Bautista. So Hachi Mix, like, what does he even offer at this point? His hype is completely dead. All the Bellator fans that were like, "Oh, Patchy Mix can be top 5 in the UFC," they're all gone after his performance against Mario Bautista. And just the way he looked, it just proves that he's not even like ranked caliber. So Patchy Mix, send him 2, 3 years into the Apex. Maybe he'll get some finishes over bums, and then maybe then we'll put him on a main card of fight night. All right, now up next we got Andre Petrosky. This guy's the definition of a middleweight NPC. He doesn't really get knockouts. He's just like big, buff, and strong. Right? He's very athletic, but he's not very technical. His grappling leaves a lot to be desired. Like he has decent wrestling, and outside of that, he's just completely mid. Like he literally just aggression maxes to win his fights against like middle level competition. But he's not like he's really landing anything against anyone who's like kind of good on the feet. He'll just kind of resort to just fainting at range nonstop, like in his last fight against Edmund Shabazian. So Andre Petrosky, he's an Apex mainstay. He doesn't deserve to be on like a fight night card or like UFC pay per view, especially if it's against like decent level competition. Because the second he fights decent level competition, Andre Petrosky just like looks like a complete tart out there. And Andre Petrosky, he's not exactly the most fun fighter to watch. He rarely gets any finishes. He couldn't even finish Dylan Budka. So Andre Petrosky, I know he wins some fights, but he should still be on the Apex regardless because he's just not that fun to watch. All right, now up next we got Carl Williams. Most of you guys definitely don't know who this guy is. I'll be real. I barely know who this guy is. I just know that he's the guy who beat Justin Tafa, who has like some sort of wrestling, but refuses to use it because he's retarded. And Carl Williams, simply put, another class of the cryogenically frozen NPC heavyweights. All right, he doesn't belong on a fight night card. He doesn't belong on a UFC pay per view. Like, quite frankly, he shouldn't be on the UFC roster, but the UFC heavyweight division's kind of shallow, and he is better than Justin Tafa and Hamdi Abdel Wahab. So, I think if he's cryogenically frozen in the UFC Apex, I'm not gonna complain because he's not exactly good, but he's at least better than some of the guys here. So, I'll take that. All right, now up next we got Alonzo Manyfield. Yeah, there are times where he looks really fun to watch, like even like if he loses because he can just get knocked out clean. But at times, he'll look completely mid. Like in his last fight with Omar Sy, I understand that Alonzo Manyfield won the fight. That fight was atrocious to watch. Omar Sy should be ashamed of himself. But Alonzo Manyfield, there are times where he looks really good and really fun to watch, and then there are times where he looks completely mid. Maybe it depends on the stylistic matchup, but if you know that he's gonna fight like some like technical, well-rounded fighter, probably best interest to put him in the Apex. But if he's fighting some like exciting striker, then maybe you'll put him on the fight night or main card. Or like pay per view main card because he's probably gonna get a highlight reel KO or he's probably gonna get knocked out in the first round. And last but not least, we got Hyun Sung Park who's fighting Tatsuro Taira this weekend. Yeah, he should not be in the Apex. Like, even if he loses his fight against Tatsuro Taira this weekend, I still think Hyunsung Park's really fun. He won all of his fights via finish. And sure, it's not against the best levels of competition, but he's consistently winning via finish. And I think that's pretty impressive. All right. Maybe you don't have to put him on like every single pay-per-view or fight night card. But like get him out of the Apex once in a while. Like I think this is his fourth fight in the UFC and like his fourth fight in the Apex. So I hope to see Hyunsuk Park outside of the Apex even if he loses this fight. And bare minimum, I think you give him like the right matchups. I think he'll be like a headliner to like a prelim. All right, maybe like a feature fight to a prelim of a pay per view, but clearly he's not exactly the Apex caliber because, unlike most of the Apex fighters, Sung Park's actually pretty fun to watch. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video. Leave a comment down below if you guys think this video is completely different from the one I made yesterday, because it is. All right, I don't want to hear anyone talking about how this is exactly the same video and I ran out of ideas. All right, but all right, leave a comment down below who you would send over the Apex or free from the Apex. But other than that, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.